Hey guys, so today I'm going to be answering the first of many questions that you guys have asked me in celebration of my 3,000 newly acquired subscribers. So I've decided that I'm going to do these questions pretty much a video per question. And the reason for that is some of these questions are actually really quite in-depth and really quite interesting to talk about, and I don't really want to have to gloss over them by doing, say, 5 questions in a video. That's just... And also there's a lot of variety in them as well. So today I'm going to be answering a very technical question, which is obviously not going to appeal to everyone who subscribes and watches this channel. So it's easier for you guys, I guess, to judge from the title whether or not you might want to watch a video based on the question that has been asked. Okay, so the first question, which is a doozy, comes from A. Hutsona, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name there. How do you feel about some of the admins of Debian wanting to fork the project due to the implementation of System D? Okay, so this is a very technical question. Actually, it's not necessarily technical, or at least how I've interpreted it, but rather surrounding the philosophy of Debian and how Debian works. Okay, so first of all, I'm actually going to apologize in advance for any factual mistakes or mispronunciations of initialisms or anything like that, because this is certainly not my area of expertise, but it is a very interesting question, and I do actually really quite look forward to talking about it. So, System D is a newly-ish developed session manager which has been making a few waves recently. I believe Ubuntu have implemented parts of System D in their distribution. Now Ubuntu is based on Debian, and they've implemented, I think, some of System D with the intention of implementing more of it as of 14.04 Ubuntu, but I could very well be wrong on that, or it could very well have been delayed. I don't know if they followed through on that or anything like that. There were some queries, questions, and people being a bit concerned about whether or not that would cause any necessary problems, because at the time Ubuntu wanted to implement it, System D was very new. Now, there's a big debate going on in the Debian community at the moment as to whether or not System D should replace the default session manager sysv init. Now, a lot of people consider sysv init to be old and a little bit redundant, but still kind of usable, and most importantly fits within the philosophy of Debian. That's the big reason why people seem to be against this kind of shift. Now, many people, as I understand it, have proposed a third solution, which is to not use Systemd, but try something, develop something newer perhaps, something which is core to the Debian philosophy, as many people feel that Systemd isn't. So this might seem like a little bit of a point. Why is there so much of a furore over a session manager? I mean, it just seems to be a big thing to threaten to fork a project over. Well, first of all, I believe, judging from the website that was actually included in the question, the ultimate intention isn't to actually fork Debian or to actually walk out or anything like that, but that is considered the, should we say, the nuclear solution, the end solution, the thing that they're going to do if if all else fails. And I think that would be an absolute crime if that were to happen, if the Debian community themselves couldn't resolve this issue. Now, I'm not actually going to say what decision I believe they should make, because that is very much up to them. How's it going to affect the end user? Well, if you use one of the Debian-based distributions like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Elementary OS, Knoppix, these distributions are rebuilt in such a way that they often switch out the session manager for something else. For example, even though Ubuntu were talking about using Systemd at one point, they used something called Upstream, which I, again, could very well be wrong on this, but was something that they developed in-house, and Canonical do quite a lot of in-house development. They mess with Debian quite a lot before it actually turns into Ubuntu. We say that Debian is upstream from Ubuntu, but it's quite far upstream if you compare, say, the difference between the difference between Ubuntu and Debian is massively larger, say, than the difference between Ubuntu and Mint, because Mint is based on Ubuntu and then Ubuntu is in turn based on Debian. So the end user, ultimately, in a very practical way of looking at it, isn't going to see the difference, because if Ubuntu or Elementary or Linux Mint wanted to use a different session manager, then they could just switch out for a different session manager. That's not a problem in the slightest. However, the bigger problem that I see isn't necessarily one of in a technical capacity. Now, if I was a Debian developer, the technical side of things would be a much bigger concern. So I'm certainly, this is one of the reasons why I'm saying that my personal opinion as to whether or not sysvinit or or systemd or upstream or whatever, I'm not going to say which one's best, because I don't have to work with it, and as an end user, I wouldn't really see the benefit anyway. In the recent new iterations of Ubuntu, I've not noticed any difference, whether or not they switched it to systemd from upstream, from sysvinit. It seems to be pretty seamless, and for that, I think that developers on all sides have done a fantastic job there. So it's obviously up to the Debian community for them to resolve that particular issue. That being said, one of the things that I have a profound respect for when it comes to the Debian distribution, which is not only the base for so many desktop distributions in the Linux community, but also some fantastic, work on servers and things like that, is that their stringent loyalty to their philosophy and their vision of what the world, in terms of computers, Linux distributions, and the internet should look like. It should be open, it should be free, it should be constructive, it should be a community. And they're a lot more specific than those buzzwords that I've really just thrown at you. They want to see, they're very dogmatic towards their attitude on open source, to the point where they don't even include Firefox in the distribution repositories, because even though Firefox is a very open source program, the artwork involved with it does have some intellectual property attached to it. So they strip Firefox of its intellectual property, and they call it something like Iceweasel, it used to be called, and which has completely open sourced obviously the open source is taken directly from Firefox, but it also then has been stripped of its icons and graphics and things like that, and then the open source variants have been put on top of that. Again, that's one of the massive benefits of open source generally, is that even though Firefox has the artwork of Firefox basically has intellectual property attached to it, that can be stripped and it can be switched out, and then voila, you've got Iceweasel, whatever, and I believe Icedove is the Thunderbird equivalent. So Debian are very dogmatic to their personal philosophies, and dogmatic is a term that's usually used in a negative context, but today and to me, it's not. It's I guess loyalty might be a better word for it. The idea, and there are their full outlook on their project and what it should look like is quite lengthy, but. One of the big things they say is that the pieces of software that construct their operating system should by and large be constructed of pieces of software that do like one job and do it really, really well, without bloat, without too much fluff, without putting too much of a strain on the system. And I can imagine there's a number of reasons why this philosophy is so important to a lot of them. Part of it might be because Debian is chopped and changed about so much downstream that keeping it as tight as possible upstream allows for more ideas to form out of it. It's generally a good coding discipline anyway to keep things as lightweight as possible. At least that's how I see it. That's one of the reasons why I'm an LXDE fan, is I consider it to be better at what it does, not tries to do too much. And a lot of the criticisms of systemd that I've read about and that I've seen is that it's like it's one of those pieces of software that kind of does too much and then brings with it bloat. And on top of that, there are it's about the readability of the config files that set it up and so forth. This is where I sort of get far removed from it, because again, not being a developer, not being a system administrator or anything like that, it's something that I kind of have to take their word on that it's something that's going to affect them in a much bigger way. So yeah, like, ugh, I can't, like, well, first of all, I really wouldn't want there to be a fork of the project. The reason I think a fork of the project would be detrimental to just everyone involved would be that Debian is a community of some of the best developers going. It really, really is. It's a brain trust, and it's done nothing but give fantastically constructive and amazing projects to the world. There are things that Debian have done for us that we, that we'll never know, and will be of of infinite importance to us. Debian has been involved with everything from huge, great server farms to space exploration. There have been space projects which have adopted the Debian operating system. So, seeing a rift in the community in a way kind of breaks my heart because, because that is. I don't know. I just maybe it's a bit of a bump down to earth that the world isn't perfect, I guess. But yeah, I hope. My biggest hope is that they actually just resolve this difference. I don't personally care how it's done, and I don't think I should. It's not my place to put my nose in and have an opinion where it's not necessarily warranted, and certainly not constructive. But I would hate to see a fork. And to be honest, I think the people who dislike Systemd kind of, in a way, at least feel partly the same way. I'm sure they don't want to fork Debian, because that would just be so much work, and it would be a division. And I kind of feel that if any number of those developers actually walked out on Debian, then Debian and the fork would suffer, I guess, just through not having a united community. It would be two halves, I guess. Anyway, that's just my thought on it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments section below, either related or non-related to this. If you have any thoughts on Systemd, sysvinit, please again leave them down in the comment section below. If you have any corrections, if I've made any factual mistakes, please definitely leave them down in the comment section below, because I probably have. I've probably misunderstood the situation wildly, and there usually are some pretty fantastic additions in the comment section of my videos anyway when it comes to these technical side of things. So please do get involved with the discussion. And that's about it for me today. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Chris Ware, and you've been awesome. Take care now. So this is just the end slate, just to let you guys know what other kind of projects I'm working on. For those of you that don't know, I have a second channel where I do more informal, casual type stuff, and I also have a gaming channel. So if you guys are into that kind of stuff, you might want to check those out. Also, if you want to ask me any questions or just have a chat about whatever it is that I've been talking about in this video, feel free to check out my Twitter and my Tumblr as well. I spend a fair amount of time on them. Toodaloo.